Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this narration of the web series The Nature of Predators. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 75. Memory Transcription. Subject, Captain Sovlin, United Nations Fleet Command. Date, Standardized Human Time, November 28, 2136. An observer that only witnessed the clash between the Federation coalition and the humans wouldn't notice the Kolshian strength. By watching the Commonwealth heavyweights scrap with the Mazics, it was clear that they knew more about martial policy than they let on. Their fleet stayed on the move with tactics that bordered on predatory. One ship would distract the defending vessel, while others flanked it and cut it off from its allies. The Mazics had several disadvantages. To make matters worse, they were tied to the defense of Koa, similar to the humanity's pitfall while protecting Earth. Their ships were also large and slow-moving, as they had to be spacious enough to accommodate the bulky mammals. Speedy cruisers like Slinek and Marcel's patrol boat didn't exist in their arsenal. Tyler straightened his jacket. "Gojid, what's the situation? Friendly casualties?" The Kolshians managed some lucky hits with the ambush fleet. Our tally's down up to about 100, give or take. I should have clarified. I'm asking about the Mazics. Optically, it looks like they're getting overrun on the viewport. Good news? The enemy were holding back until we got here. Needed to drag this on long enough to lure us in. But the Mazics are getting their teeth kicked in, sir. Point defenses are inoperable on both lunar satellites, and their ship count is bleeding. Onso maneuvered the viewport, while his reddish ears pricked up. Our warship was blazing towards Koa's orbit with the rest of the UN fleet. The lush vegetation across the planet was mixed with the city lights, without any ashen patches. Sensors confirmed what my eyes told me. With no signs of residue from a bomb, the 6 billion souls in the world were safe. For now. However, Federation vessels were encroaching on the Mazic's inner sanctum. Friendly resistance had become negligible, the marker of an overwhelming defeat. Escape pods were jettisoned from a few craft, but the Kolshians pounced on any they saw. It was bizarre to watch a true herbivore receive predator treatment just for defecting. I hope Venlor Prime is heavily fortified. They must be viewed as the biggest traitors of all, the ones to blame for humanity's survival. Tyler bit his lip. This reminds me of Earth. We were powerless to stop them. When our air was venting and the captain ordered us to abandon ship, I knew we lost. You thought it was the end of humanity. Onso finished. I'm sorry. Me too. Makes me nostalgic for the cradle. And that was a fucking war zone. Carlos nodded. It was all simpler then. Sam and I were stationed at Hague during the cradle landing. Yeah, guard duty was better than playing war crime bingo, Samantha snorted. Wonder if we're ever going to try those bad bastards. Freudian slip. Something flashed in the sandy-haired officer's eyes. Tyler's gaze darted over to me and lingered for a long moment. The tall guy swallowed hard, looking rather distracted. The yodel seemed clueless to his friend's deliberation. But I wondered if Marcel's packmate had stumbled upon my identity. My guard's previous post implied that they would have least cited Gojid criminals. Carlos pinched his nose. Where are you going to find an impartial jury or a legal defender? Do the dumplings even deserve a trial after that? The female guard bared her teeth, darkening swirls in her green eyes. I think they should commit suicide, by bullet in the back of the head. We don't execute POWs, Sam. Sometimes I really hope that you're being facetious. Yeah, my bad. I guess the rights of murderers are a priority. 1 billion civvies dead. It's just a statistic, right? As the UN guard bickered, Captain Monahan did a sweep of the bridge. Every station was in smooth order, ready for another bout of battle. Both the Kolshians and the Mazics had noticed our approach. Friendlies were flooding our comm station with pleas. It must be difficult for humans to sort out which regions carried the highest importance. Do we have an interceptor, Gojid? Tyler opened his clenched fist, glowering at the console. Or should I say Sovlin? I blinked. Sir? Do your job! We'll deal with this later. My heart leapt out of my throat, and fear slowed my thought process. Humans hadn't caused spine bristling in a while, but my brain knew Tyler was a threat. I never meant for the sandy-haired officer to identify me. All I wanted was to help the UN win this battle and achieve retribution. Samantha and Carlos abandoned their squabble. The male guard tensed up in case Tyler moved to assault me. Well, I was grateful that he was willing to protect me. I didn't want his interference. A good beating from a cell's packmate was the least I deserved. If anything, I wished the herbivore human had struck me during his visit. Hanso cocked me. "You two know each other, not..." "Did I authorize you to chat?" Tyler snarled. "Where the feck are those intercept routes?" The Yodel ducked his head. "Sorry, my friend. I've never seen you act like this. It's making me uncomfortable." "Not you. You can talk as much as you want, Hanso. I need a distraction from the shuggle work." Tyler squeezed his eyes shut, but his knuckles were turning white. I don't think the big guy realized he was granting a peek at his canines. Captain Monahan drifted past the sensor stations, and Maury creased her lines on her forehead. Our commander must have picked up on the tension, because she hovered by us for an extra second. "Status report." Monahan cleared her throat, rapping the desk. "Got anything for navigations? I'm concerned that we might be too late for Koa." I squinted at the readout and chewed my claws. No viable intercept courses. We can't get there in time. Several Federation ships are minutes from orbital range." "What if the Mazics stopped him or slowed them down?" "Ma'am, the Mazics are all but dead in the water. I used to believe the Federation would never bomb their own. I fear that was wishful thinking these days." The Terran captain meandered back to her chair with a thoughtful expression. My gaze focused on the viewport, trying to block out Tyler's sideways looks. If nobody was removing me from my duties, I wasn't going to broach the topic. A predator like myself could be helpful to Koa's defenses. This was the only way that I could justify my existence. Our warships cruised ahead, well above recommended acceleration. The engines were going to be burned out when all was said and done. The humans accepted the serious risks to save innocent lives. I don't know how I didn't see their compassion from the start. The predators intended to stand up for the Mazics, even if on paper it was too late. Fossil armor-heavy ships hung back, determining where to insert their presence. The vessels nipped at the heels of the Mazic stragglers and executed flanking maneuvers with ease. I wondered if these would become a standard Federation model, given the new variables. Humanity's shield breakers would be as powerful against armored craft. "Those kinetic railguns better have a lot left in the tank. It'll be like biting on granite if not." Mazic assistance calls continued to register on Terran bandwidth. The amount had dipped, which correlated with rapid casualties on sensors. The Federation was on bombing trajectory, unimpeded. Only a few hundred defenders were left. Concern was visible on the faces of many human crew members. Hanso yipped with indignation. 5 vessels of fossil make, forming a barricade in our path. Should we slow down?" "No, we should speed up," Tyler growled. "I guarantee our nerves are a hell of a lot stronger than theirs." Samantha grinned. "That's not saying much, but I'm all for painting a bullseye on their back." Converted Tillfish gunships, now decked out in UN insignia, hugged our sides. The allied duo broke out of our pace and threw a little extra into the throttle. The fossil vessel were waiting to put up an ionic barrier. They must have noticed the magnetic bombs. It didn't make sense to establish fortifications that would be knocked out. Fortunately, our warship still toted our plasma railgun. The 5 hostiles waited for the telltale energy spike before raising shields. Between an exorbitant armor and the well-timed barrier, our targeting shrugged off the blasts. I could see a gash in the hull plating, but the enemy could seal off the compartment. The Terran gunships went after the damaged foe, but the other fossil condensed around their weakest link. Armor tailored to kinetics was the Predator's match. These ships were designed to function past shield failures. I wasn't sure how even the humans could thwart these measures. If combat dragged on, it would waste precious time for the Mazic homeworld. Hanso shoved me out the way. "We have to reach Koa. I'm going to take a look, since Gojid Sovlin hasn't done anything useful." My first instinct was to challenge the primitive. This wasn't timed to make a fool of himself. Did the Uplift think that he could join a Predator exchange program and magically qualify for tactical roles? Fighting wars in the 3rd dimension was far cry from tilling fields. Humans of all species should understand how behind the times Hanso was. I couldn't believe there was anything more than a ship mascot. The only reason I bit my tongue was to avoid provoking Tyler further. It was the officer's job to intervene here, despite any notion of friendship. However, the Yodel was correct in my inefficacy. Tyler, recognizing me, weighed on my psyche, and guilt made it difficult to conjure up tactics. Perhaps asking for a transfer couldn't wait for the battle's conclusion. Once the marsupial floundered around for a bit, I could hand the station over to Collis and Sam. Do ramming tactics work? We could clip them on the side. Velocity and mass are in our favor, Hanzo said. Long as we don't strike them head-on, we should remain operational. Tyler shrugged his chin. Navigation will need to find a perfect angle. We don't want to knock out any vital functions. Well, we don't have to take the fossil out. They're stationary. They won't catch us if we pass them. Just need to shove the bastards aside. The census officer relayed the findings to Monahan, who brought up a nav station into the loop. Our warship drifted towards the fossil ship's flank. The course adjustment was incremental. The Terran gunships took the lead, distracting our opponents with kinetics. It hadn't taken humans long to discover how atrocious prey were at multitasking. Our tail was angled away from the target. That was an attempt to keep the engine secure. Despite my skepticism on the uplift's capabilities, Hanzo was quick thinking. I wondered if he had predator disease with such a knack for violence. It was one thing with human hunters, but genuine herbivores weren't meant for aggression. Our Yodel doctors even trained in signs of predator disease. Do they screen for it as children and all? Carlos tugged me into a seat. As our collision was imminent, the male guard looked nervous, listening to the clash alarms on the PA. In contrast, Samantha's eyes smoldered with venom. She showed little concern for her welfare. That predator was a kindred spirit in many ways, having lost enough to seek vengeance at any cost. Our spacecraft broadsided the enemy, hurling it out of our path. The impact sent a jolt through our frame, and my head whipped forward. A harness sucked me back into my seat. I hadn't even noticed Carlos fasten it. Several predators seemed disoriented by the crash, but navigations managed to retain control. Hanzo howled with delight. You guys are insane. I can't believe that worked. If you can't believe it worked, then why the fact did you suggest it? I groaned. Tyler glared at me, eyes steady. You did great, Hanzo. If I didn't need you on the viewport, I'd stick you in the spiky bastard's place now. Not wishing to respond, my gaze shifted out the viewport. The fossil craft was torn asunder, with its armor caved in from the wreck. The engine had given out as well, leaving it immobile. Momentum flung the enemy well out of position, and likely incapacitated the occupants. I couldn't imagine inertial dampeners kept up with the drastic shift. The humans didn't stop to admire their handiwork, with Koa in reach. There were no conflicts in the nearby vicinity. Mazic friendlies had vanished from the sensor data after their final stand. Our comm station had gone quiet long ago, aside from the occasional status request from the surface. I didn't want to guess at the casualty count. Captain Monahan was expressionless, presiding over the bridge. How could she retain such stoicism, knowing the imminent tragedy ahead? Humanity had raced to the Mazic's defense and wrought havoc on Federation assailants. Our victory was convincing and swift, enough so that the rout on the ambush freed from shock. Hostiles reached orbit position all the same, and left the predators with no good options. I could see the Kolshians hovering above the green orb, poised to drop their payloads. This homeworld had been stripped of its defenses, and the army was in shambles. We could kill every last enemy, but it didn't see a way to stop the bombs from striking the planet. Predator fleets, come in. The voice crackling over the radio was unmistakably Kolshian. Change your vector now, or we will drop antimatter weapons on the planet. This is your only warning. Murmurs rippled across the bridge, but Monahan raised a hand for silence. UN Command's orders to take up a holding pattern was immediate. Human empathy wouldn't permit them to sacrifice civilians. Was allowing the Federation to subdue the Mazics a good alternative, though? It would turn a valuable ally into a puppet state. The United Nations agreed upon our captain's name when she offered to handle communications. Our battle-tested ship, unfortunately, carried seniority within the hodgepodge Terran fleet. The humans' original constructions were gutted during the Crow-Cattle invasion. Surviving craft were few and far between. Qualified officers were in limited supply as well. Our captain's position was unenviable, in my view. I wasn't sure what room there was to negotiate with the tentacled liars, or what the acceptable outcome was. More baffling was that the Kolshians spoke to the human military at all. It was a blessing the Predators didn't request my input. Monahan pressed the microphone to her lips. Federation attackers, we've halted our advance. We'd like to talk. Let's find a resolution that doesn't involve innocent bloodshed. All right. The captain signaled to the comm station, and the technician extended the hail. All we could do was wait for the Kolshians' response. Predatory might wouldn't save the day here. A single bomb hitting the magic metropolis would kill millions, which forced us to the bargaining table. It was time to see how crafty humans were in endeavors beyond fighting. End of chapter. I'd quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and patrons: Casper Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Lord Azrakal, Dragzoon W.R.E, Holly Sister, Ambrose Cattell, and Quantum Wednesday. Thank you very much.